All right, welcome to another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, one of the last episodes for 2025. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be jumping into this Hira no Kamae, right? I want to talk about, here's what I want to talk about this Kamae is, it's one that everybody knows, or almost everybody knows, right? And good timing, too close to a train track. Anyway, almost everybody knows, and almost everyone misunderstands. Okay. So if you only see Hira, and this is true for a lot of postures, but I really wanted to center this one in, right? If you only see Hira as a posture, as a stance, right? However, people tend to think about these things, right? Most likely, if you're like most people, you'll never trust it. Right? And if you don't trust it, like most people, you'll never use it, right? So this lesson isn't about how to stand, right? It's about why Hira exists. And for those of you who don't know Hira no Kamae, that's a nose. Okay, so it's this open, right, receiving posture. But again, why does it look this way, right? So we're going to take a look at some common misreads. We're going to take a look at this Kamae from three levels, three layers of how it's used, both traditionally and whatnot, and also how I introduce it to students to make sure that they're understanding our 8 phases of effective self-defense strategy, right? This paradigm, right? That we're not just either off and like happy in the world, and then suddenly we're in a self-defense situation and have to like duke it out and those kind of things, right? That's phase 6, right? So we'll take a look at these layers and what it means and what it could mean at different points in a student's training. Okay, and then I'm going to also take a look at 2 attacker types, and again we're going to narrow this down, right, to 2 primary attacker types based on a certain mentality, right, and how Hira affects them. Okay, right. So let's start in the beginning, right? Beginners look at Hira and they think, no, right? I'm going to stand like I'm going to get hit, right? Fighters look at it and think, oh, that's stupid. That wouldn't work, man. You're like wide open, right? Where's your cover? Where's your, right? And both are judging it from the outside looking in based on watching other fights, just fight like everybody else. Okay. But the reality is that if we fight like everybody else, then I think most people miss this, right? While it might be easier in certain ways, if we fight like everybody else, then our opponent is always going to know generally what we're going to be doing. So we've got to come up with tricks and whatnot and then hope he falls for them and whatnot. But what if we didn't have to be tricky the way most people think about being tricky? What if we needed to understand how the Kamae works and what it's presenting and how it gets processed, and then being able to use that? Okay, maybe, right? So again, they're both judging it from the outside. Okay, and the common misreads that people are approaching it from is that, right, it looks open. Okay, let me admit it, right? When you first got into this art, looked open. Like, when the hell would you use that, right? It looks weak because it's wide open, right? All your targets are exposed. Where's your guard? Talk about that in a minute, right? And it looks not fight ready. Yes, I'm specifically calling out the word fight. It's not fight ready. Okay. Again, beginners look at it a certain way, but either way, both people are looking at it from the perspective of you're fucking wide open, right? Why would you do that, right? One person's looking at it from a fear base, Well, they're both looking at it from a fear-based perspective, but one's looking at it fear-based, right? Because I'm here to learn how to protect myself, right? I'm wide open, right? The other one's looking at it more from a fight science perspective, having been there, kind of thing. And so this just looks counterproductive. This looks counterintuitive, right? That's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. But what we're going to look at today is a core principle of Hira. Okay. And that core principle is border control. I know it sounds a lot like a bunch of political shit that's going on today, right? But if we're going to protect something, we should have a border around it. Okay. Take that to mean whatever it is you think it means. But basic combat principle is here's a line, here are gates, here are fences, right? Don't cross them without consequences, or don't cross them without permission. Okay. It's the same thing. This is just a microcosm to a macrocosm, right? Locks on our doors, whatever. Okay. So Hira no Kamae isn't about openness, right? Now we can teach it from this perspective of you're open, kind of carefree, you're very free to move around. It can appear to be chaotic, those kind of things, but it's not about openness. It's about setting borders. Okay. And once you see that, once you understand that, everything clicks. Okay. But what is that everything? Well, we're going to look at this from 3 different levels or 3 different layers. All right. So at the beginner level, this is something that my new students get like right up front. If we understand that Kamae are holistic, if we understand that we're in a situation, we're in an experience, and we're operating on at least 3 levels. In Mikyo, we would say 10 levels, but let's pare it down, right? We're working on 3 levels, right? There's something the body's doing to control the fight. There's something the mind is doing, right? Strategic thinking, planning, decision-making, those kind of things, finding opportunities, staying away from warning signs, danger flags, those kind of things. And there's a level of intent, right? What we're intending to do, okay? So at this level 1, right? Level 1 is about de-escalation, all right? But Sensei, I want to wipe the floor with his ass. Okay, great, right? What happens when you can't? Okay, so we're coming at this from a self-protection, self-defense perspective, and I know how the waters get muddied with things like that because, by and large, most people would define self-defense like this. If we were going to write this as a math equation, okay, most people would write this as self-defense equals fighting. And therein lies the first problem, okay? Because self-defense situations and fight situations or scenarios aren't the same. They can look the same if we're only looking at moves, if we're only looking at what's happening in certain situations or in certain contexts, okay? But self-defense begins with a general awareness of what could be done to me, right? And what dangers I most likely have to deal with. And so educating myself about those, and that actually sets me on the path of learning solutions to very specific problems. What are those attacks? What are those things, right? If we're only looking at fighting, the way most people think of fighting, that's why most martial artists and self-defense people are in arguments all the time, are angry or frustrated or whatever because life's not going their way or whatever, because they don't see that what we're defending or what we're protecting isn't always internal organs and not getting our arm broken or, eye blackened or whatever. Okay. This is a bigger thing. Okay. And then that bleeds into situational awareness. Okay. The sooner I can see things coming, the sooner I can either prepare or phase 3, get the hell out of Dodge, right? I can escape to safety. If I can't do that and they're already there, right? And if things aren't already flying, if the guy hasn't stepped out of a doorway or a panel van and already has his arms wrapped around me and he's dragging me off my feet, right? Then perhaps I have an opportunity to de-escalate this, turn it around, right? In one way or another, okay? In the 8 phases, we have distractions, get him looking somewhere else or thinking about something else, right? Or dissuasion, okay? We change his mind about the viability of us as a viability or a viable target, right? And we can do that by either looking like we're not worth his time, or that this is going to be more difficult in the long run than he expects, and it's a check he's not willing to cash. Okay, and then we can talk about if those things fail, then we can talk about physical self-defense. Okay, but then afterwards, right, we could run into our system backfiring on itself, either directly through PTSD or dealing with family things, right? Other people now don't feel safe around us because they saw the monster come out, or legally, criminally or civilly, because in most Western countries, I don't know about the Eastern countries or Middle East or whatever, but in most Western countries, bad guys can sue you for damages. I'm not a lawyer. Check that in your local municipality, region, province, whatever. But yeah, so most self-defense courses, most martial arts classes don't prepare people for the shitstorm, the other attacks that can happen after they win or lose the situation. Okay, so anyway, so we'll take a look at that. But the first level is about de-escalation. Okay, and so Hira is the body language half or third, I would call it, right, of de-escalation. Okay, and here's a dangerous mistake I see all the time. I lived through this, being in different martial arts, different schools, different teachers, but it all kind of came around full circle, right? Students are taught to say things like, I don't want to fight, or, I don't want any problems, or whatever, right? While standing in a fight stance. Like, if I'm facing you and I say, dude, I don't want to fight, right? I don't want any problems, just calm down, back off, right? Do you believe me? If you said yes, I don't know if you've ever been that angry at somebody where they're, okay, or there's a disconnect because people want to believe certain things to be true because their teacher said so or whatever, or that wasn't taught, or that's not, whatever. But the reality is that this is mixed messages. Okay, this kind of thing sends mixed messages, right? And mixed messages under threat are dangerous because my mouth is saying one thing. I don't want to fight. I don't want any trouble. But my body is saying something very, very different. Okay. But if I say, hey, whoa, I don't want any trouble, right? I don't want to fight. Okay. This is a universal surrender position. So either I'm authentic, or I'm an idiot, or I know something that, right? So, but the words and the body language match, right? No, nobody walks around going, I don't care what we do. They say, I don't care. Okay, whatever you want, fine. Yeah, good. Look, dude, just whatever. Okay, we do this all the time, but somehow we walk into a martial arts school or a self-defense class and we suspend normal behavior. Again, interesting, right? So people, talk about you got to take up a ready position, right? You got to be there just in case, right? You're telling him that you don't want to fight, but you got to be ready just in case. Yeah, I know. Hira is the ready position. Okay, but it doesn't look like. Do we want influence and control, or do we want to take our chances? We want to take our chances. That's a contest. Okay, that's sport fighting. Right? This is about survival. Okay, this is about situational control. Okay, and now if I'm in this position and I'm saying I don't want to fight, I don't, whatever, and like I'm peeing my pants and I'm whatever, right? And I'm not paying attention to him and signs that he's like, I don't care, right? And he comes anyway, then yeah, okay, you're right. Okay, I'm not ready. Okay, but if I think about this as a ready position. Yeah, but Sensei, where's your guard? My guard is the space between he and I, right? I'm not in this position with his fist right in front of me. That's where people make this mistake, right? They think about nose-to-nose, toe-to-toe fighting, and both people are in at least jab range, because they're each trying to get one without having to take one. But if I back out, which would be normal anyway, whoa, hey, right? Now, the space between he and I that forces him to readjust, right? In which case I'm going to readjust, I'm going to keep. So he's going to get the gist that he has to, if he's going to take the shot, he's going to have to do it from what I gave him, right? So it makes him work harder, right? It puts more space between he and I, and space equals time. So whatever speed advantage he has just went away because he has to travel farther to get me, right? He can get there quicker, but he still needs to take more time to get here, right? Neutralizes strength because it stretches him out. A whole bunch of things going on here, okay? So, again, Hira is it is the ready position, right? Just without signs of aggression, okay? And so from a de-escalation standpoint, it comes across as more true, more authentic, okay? Now, does that mean that he's going to go away? No, okay? There are no guarantees to anything. So it's also what we might call the matador or the bullfighter's blanket or cape, right? So if he does charge, right, then I'm ready for flanking maneuvers and things like that, okay? So again, but it's a de-escalation posture. Hands are open, right? Not like this, right? This puts things closer that he can grab a hold of things or whatever, okay? Hira puts everything equidistant, right? It's just as difficult to go after my limbs as it is to go after anything else, okay? Very different from other postures where if I choose these things at the wrong time, right? And I'm only thinking about protecting this or my groin or whatever, then my leg can be swept, my arm can be hit or cut or what, okay? So we need to think about this more strategically. Well, it'd be a good idea to think about this more strategically, okay? You can do whatever you want, okay? But again, open hands, that's a universal sign of fending and surrender, right? The structure's intact though, right? The distance is managed, okay? De-escalation doesn't mean unprepared, right? It means coherent, okay? It means I'm giving myself and him an opportunity to lessen severity, de-escalate, right? To reduce in force or severity, right? Doesn't mean it's going to go away, but I'm giving things a chance. The other thing this does is it very clearly communicates to any witnesses, right? The video cameras that are rolling, somebody's going to watch later, or anybody that's standing around, that you're not fighting. Even if he comes in here and I have to do something to him, it very clearly establishes legal liability and differentiates the difference between a self-defense situation and a fight. A fight, two or more people, right? Going at it, trying to win the same prize, bragging rights, trophy, whatever. Self-defense, two or more people going at it, but at least one of those people didn't want to be there, right? It's not voluntary, not trying to win anything other than their safety or escape, whatever, their survival, right? It's not the same. It's not the same, okay? Core intent, not the same, okay? So level one is de-escalation. Okay? We still teach techniques there because this may not work, okay? Which is why, like our 8 phases of effective self-defense strategy is a progression scale, right? General awareness is all the stuff that we study and pay attention to and whatnot in training, before training, right? All that kind of stuff, right? We're going to talk about one that a lot of people in traditional martial arts and even some self-defense circles have never heard of because, well, it's outside the Bujinkan bubble, or it's outside whatever their system or style is, and it's not the terminology used. Okay, right? But learning about these things and how they work, and how they work accidentally, because that's just how people operate, or they work as a system. This was actually developed by an Air Force officer, I think, right? Anyway, I've got some notes on it here shortly. But we're still going to try this, right? Okay. So level 2, what's level 2? Okay. Well, level 2 is a protective border. Okay. Level 1 is about me. Okay. Threat's coming at me. I'm going to try to de-escalate it. Okay. Now, level 2, the threat is in front of me or could be coming at me, but it's not about me. Okay. At this next layer, Hira, not about me anymore. Okay. It's about what's behind me. At another level of training, we go from this being a de-escalation posture, right, and a preparedness position from there to a bodyguard position. Okay. Hira's a bodyguard position. They may be coming at me, but I'm not the target, I'm the barrier. Okay. In this position, at this layer, Hira is positioned between the bad guy and what I'm protecting on the other side. Okay. It's about what's behind me. I've inserted myself between me and the thing that person wants. Okay. And that could be a person. It could be a doorway they're trying to get through. It could be an object, right, that they want. Okay. So Hira becomes a gate. Okay. It becomes a gate, right? So the message is no longer, I don't want to fight. The message becomes, you don't get access. You got to go through me to get the thing that you want. Okay. It's a whole different mindset. Okay. And how we're going to handle this person, right? And this is what allows us to go back through kata and look at things from a whole different level. This one, he's attacking me. I'm going to control him. I'm going to drop him, whatever. But a lot of those techniques are going to be problematic at this level, because if I just all out get out of the way, right, it makes it easier for him to slip by and get the thing that he wants. Okay. So we have to look at techniques more critically from this level, right? What maintains the gate, what maintains the barricade while I'm still dealing with this person. Okay. So again, level 1, right? I don't want to fight. I'm doing everything I can to prevent that, but I'm prepared should it come at me. Okay. At this level, it's coming at me, but he's trying to get through me, right? So now it's about, you got to go through me to get to it, right? So very, very different mindset. Okay. At level 3, Hira is our primary Kamae for dealing with multiple attackers. If anybody's done any work in the Togaku review, and I understand we could be in a position where we've got like Mitsubishi or we've got Shuriken and we're surrounded by swordsmen and then we pick something to go. But in the earlier stages where you're against fewer that are coming at you, right? Often we're kind of in this position, right? So this one is, it's going to take a little bit of explanation, right? So this one is, we'll just have controlling multiple attackers. Okay. This is great for one-on-one. This is great for one-on-one. But what if, right? That becomes problematic, right? Okay. So at this level, Hira becomes a more obvious border system. Okay. The open arms, right? Now, what we're looking at, okay, these are like foul lines on a baseball field, if that works for cricket too, that okay. But what we have these foul lines, okay? And what I'm doing is creating lines that I'm not going to let him cross. Right? Now, if we did this in a class, you might see this better, where one or more of these guys in this group are going to try to do the whole divide and conquer kind of thing, right? Because if they can split up, it becomes harder and harder to deal with them. That's why I need to be able to back up. I need to be able to adjust to keep them inside these lines. So it's not like this. It's not like this. That, man, that's a narrow lane, right? It's this way, because if they get past the line that my arms are creating, they are now behind me. Yeah, since he's right here, he's beside you. No, not strategically, not in a combat situation. He's behind me, right? Because it becomes harder and harder for them to deal with. And if I go to deal with this guy, I give this guy more spit, right? This is a double-bladed Seigan, double-bladed Ichimonji. Okay, 1, 2, both. Okay, ryote, right? 2 hands, right? So again, I need a position so that nobody crosses them. Okay? Because if they cross it, they get behind me, and it becomes harder and harder to defend against everybody. Okay, at this level, I'm not chasing attackers. I'm guarding borders. Okay, if I can keep them within these lines, okay, I also funnel them toward me, all in the same direction. And the closer they get, the more they get in each other's way. Okay, I create a bottleneck. Okay, but if one or more cross these lines that I'm creating, right, I've already failed even before they get to me, because I can't control everything. Right, not as a single person. Right, so again, here it's about me. Here it's about me too. Okay, but here one-on-one, right, and I'm creating this situation. Let's see what I have in my notes here. If I expand on the border thing, sorry. Okay, so let's look at this as a from a border perspective. Okay, at this level here, right, Hira is a border, but it's a border between freedom or safety and violence. Okay, calm down, right? Right. So it gives me a line that I'm defending, which is trying to not have anything go on at all, but to increase my advantage, right? Because I'm sending mixed messages and whatnot. Now, I'm not sending mixed messages when I'm saying I don't want to fight, but the border is kind of, it's not philosophical. What would you call that? Where it's between, again, freedom and a shitstorm coming. Okay, here it's a border between him and what he wants. Okay, this is the epitome of the bodyguard world. Okay, the bodyguard is paid to insert themselves between danger and this person or object or whatever that somebody wants. And here I'm controlling access. Right, I'm preventing them, one or more of them, from flanking, right, and getting around. Okay, I get to do the flanking. Right? I get to do the maneuvering and stuff like that. I don't let them do it, so I'm funneling them in. So it is about me, but as far as being the target, okay. But now what I'm doing is I'm controlling them in a way where if they want me, they've got to come in within the field that I'm creating. Okay, all right. So again, I'm not chasing attackers. I'm not trying to micromanage and whatnot, right? I'm keeping them collected in a space, okay? So again, they stay inside the lines, right? They get in each other's way. They cross those lines, that's problematic, okay? So we have to understand the strategy, right? But again, most people, they learn this because they have to get the next belt, but either spoken or unspoken, in their head, don't trust it. They would never use it. They wouldn't use it because they don't understand it. Once they understand it, they can see how this sends mixed messages. Okay. I just did a class last night. Now we're not doing a Friday masterclass this week because we're really close to the Christmas holidays. The dojo is going to be closed for a little while. I'll still do some of these things, but we won't be having a master class. But I will be making last night's class available because we did some drills that took people through these. Okay, we didn't get to this one, but I want to talk about 2 specific attacker types because someone's fight ability or level of rage or level of control or whatever over themselves, level of experience, will determine what they do, what they see, when they take up this position. Okay. And so I can do something with my body, but my facial micro expressions can do something different. Right. So again, we're thinking on multiple levels and not just, yeah, I trust that. Or, and some people, there's a whole other half of people that trust this because of blind faith. Okay. They still don't understand it. They just trust that if their teacher gave it to them, then must be a-okay. Right. So we have to be careful in that direction as well. Right. So let's take a look at these attacker types. Okay. Got two of them that I want to talk about. One is impulsive. This one doesn't think very strategically at all, or thinks at a very just a couple of steps outside the cave, right? Caveman kind of thing. What I mean by that is the impulsive attacker, all he sees are weaknesses and openings, and he just rushes right in. Okay, because it's right there. Okay, it's kind of like the bull going after the matador's cape, right? As soon as there's movement, it just goes. Okay, this guy sees this and just makes that assumption that you're wide open and it's easy. Okay, even Shizen. Okay, Shizen no Kamae, right? Shizen, right? In Gyokoryu is called Hira. Okay, Shizen is another receiving posture. Okay? Okay. Names are, don't get stuck on names, right? So in past sparring situations where I visit schools or have been invited, and then they're doing sparring and might invite me out or whatever, right? If I'm not doing this, I'm just moving around in Shizen. Okay, can you guess the number one comment that's made by spectators who are cheering their fellow student on? Okay. Yeah, it's get him, dude. He's wide open. Okay. And then I go, yeah, wide open. Okay. And where this person might have started to come in, right? Some of them will see me go, yeah, wide open. And the brakes go on and creates hesitation. Okay. The second type of attacker is strategic. This guy doesn't fall for tricks. Okay. If something looks too good to be true, probably is. Okay. It's not impulsive. Okay. He picks his shots. Okay. This is the dangerous one. I'm not saying this guy won't hurt you. Okay. But once you get to a certain level, guys who come flying in with anger and rage are actually easier to control. Okay. As long as you don't get overwhelmed by that. And that's why at the Okuden levels, the training isn't so much about the kata as much as about the stuff on the inside. Okay. Do we walk around like we've got the shit together? But as soon as the rage happens or honey's yelling at you or whatever, we fold. Right. Or anger triggers in us and then we're not thinking clearly, those kind of things. Right. So as long as this guy doesn't break, right, that Fudo resolve I talked about during this week's Kuden, right? Here's the Matador's cape, right? So what does Matador do as soon as the bull charges it? Pulls the cape, sticks a spike in him. Next, right? Want to try again? Right? That kind of thing, because we're using that imperativeness, that impulsiveness, that blind thinking, okay, against it, right? But the dangerous one, the one I really need to worry about, okay, this guy, right? He's probably better than me in skill, or he's stronger, he's faster, he's taller, whatever. He's younger, coming up on 63, okay? So that guy, he's the one I need to worry about. Okay. So I cause him to hesitate because I'm moving this way, letting him know there it is. Okay. But it's this. Okay. That presence. It's not the form. Right. Again, we're back to mixed messages, just like I don't want to fight, but I'm in a fight posture. Okay. Are you open? Or are you ready? Okay? We can see this midway in Gyokoryu with a Hira Jumonji. Okay. Well, shit. Groin's wide open, your gut's wide open and stuff. So are you protected and ready, or are you wide open? Right. So at a certain point for beginners, we don't want to be sending mixed messages. We need very clear, if you touch me, I will kill you. If you like, whoa, hey, no, I don't want any problems. Okay. I need authenticity. And this leads us up into upper levels where we're working with Kyujutsu Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood. If you can't identify or present authenticity, you can't present truth, how do you alter that in a way that somebody's going to believe it? Most people that apply trickery, what they think is Kyujutsu Tenkan, is obvious trickery. And only fools, this guy and below, will buy into it because they're not paying attention to what you're doing. The guy that's paying attention, right? This guy's dangerous because he's just going to throw shit at the wind and hope that something sticks. This guy is like the sniper, right? Surgical precision, shotgun energy, targeted energy. Okay. This guy, he's the one that advanced people should be worried about. Okay. But if we don't split attacker types and we just say the attacker's going to do this, which attacker? What personality type? What fight style? What is he looking for specifically because of his fight style or because of his preferences? What's going to trigger him to move? And what's going to trigger him to do absolutely nothing at all because he's either not looking at it, not looking for it, or doesn't worry about it? Right? This generalist thinking kind of thing is that's really dangerous. Okay. But again, this guy, right, sees weakness and rushes in. This guy, right, he's going to hesitate because he sees, right? Hesitation is gold. You get him to hesitate. You get him to start second guessing. Okay. I've been doing a lot of research on tactics and things like that from World War II, from all sides. Okay. Just a quick story here because it all fits the whole combat kind of thing. So there was an engineer company, group, whatever, from the US that, if you don't know what combat engineers are, they're the ones that go in after the enemy has like blown up bridges or roads or whatever and made repairs at least enough that we can get equipment across, right? Because part of warfare is taking away, a big part of warfare is taking away an attacker's ability to fight. Hesitation. Okay. Or you let him do his barrage, blow off all of his freaking armaments and stuff like that, and you flank his ass and rope him up. Okay. So, but anyway, this group would normally, like with this group, there was a tank division coming in, right? And what they would normally do is plant landmines along the road, right? Try to blow some tracks off the tanks and things like that. And it was dead of winter. And if you've ever been in, or if you're from Europe, I remember being in, I would say South Korea, colder than shit. Not as cold as North Korea, but colder than shit. We were in Arctic gear, and wintertime in Germany, that was okay. But anyway, the ground was so frozen they couldn't even like get the shovels, the trenching tools to dig in, the pounding away, and they might be lucky if they like drop an inch. But these tanks had mine detectors, which are magnetic, right? And they're sensing ahead and those kind of things, right? Well, these guys are like right in the middle of things. It's dead of winter. There's very few places to hide and whatnot. So how, right? How do we create this? Okay. So this is a lesson in causing the enemy to hesitate, right? How do you get the enemy to abandon over 100 pieces of armor and the fuel trucks and all that kind of stuff and sneak off because they're afraid of what actually was less than 30 guys? Okay. Well, what these guys did was invented something that has become known as the daisy chain. And I don't mean in some freaky sense, right? It became known as the daisy chain. And what these guys did was they had lengths of rope and they had these freaking landmines, but they couldn't bury them. So what they did was they daisy chained these things together, right? The mines were 5, 6, 7 feet apart on a rope that was put along a trench next to the road. So the magnetic detectors are out here checking the road. They can't see these things, right? And then a rope is brought across to the other side where 1 or 3 guys are waiting, right? And as soon as these tanks get into position, they yank and they pull these mines. Pins have already been pulled and all that. Pull these mines across the road, and so now the tracks are going to eat up on the rope. Pull these things in. Oh, definitely blowing things off, blowing wheel hubs, all kinds of things, right? And so all they need to do is really get the first or second one, and this thing drives into a ditch. Now you got this big multi-ton roadblock, and everything has to stop behind it because where they chose to do it, there was no way to get around, even for these tanks. Okay. What's this have to do with hesitation? Okay. Well, they did it a couple of times, and it got to a point where the enemy couldn't move well. They every time they saw a rope or a vine, anything laying across the road, they stopped. It got so bad that this Panzer division, in the dark of night, climbed out of their freaking tanks, right? Bunch of these guys, and made their way through the darkness of the forest to get away because they were that terrified that they were going to be blown up at any moment. Okay. That is ingenuity, but that is psychological warfare. Okay. Creating fear, creating hesitation and whatnot with something that looks to most people like it's stupid. But once they've been stung once or twice, or you send mixed messages, yeah, right? Or even from here, like I did with those guys I sparred with, right? He's wide open. Yeah, wide open. Okay. Did some come? Yeah. And then they run into things or they miss and gets popped or whatever. But the more they get caught on those things, the more hesitation. And since these Kamae, right, this one looks way open. This one looks like, what are you, nuts? You're not even doing anything. Yeah, I am. I'm doing a lot. Right? But if you're only paying attention to the outer form, you're going to fall for the trap that's waiting for you. Okay? So, again, impulsive attacker sees this. You know that old phrase, fools rush in? Okay? This guy sees it. He sees this, but he also sees, okay, everything changes. Okay, because this guy isn't just looking at the form of the posture, he's looking at eye movement. Okay, is it looking straight ahead at him? Does it look happy? Right, or is he breaking eye contact? The toughest, right? They can't hold eye contact. Keep breaking eye contact. Okay? That's what Meski's for. Okay, to keep them from getting you to break, even if you do, to get you to stop and to not look like you're breaking. But if somebody, their eyes break contact, that's an internal to external signal that spirit has broken. Okay, so if we don't understand fighting or defense or whatever on that level, then we're always going to wait for the punch or the knife or the bullet or whatever. Right? So this leads us to this thing called an OODA loop, right? OODA loop, OODA, right? So OODA means observe, orient, decide, and act, okay? This is taught in a lot of self-defense or a lot of military police kind of circles and whatnot, right? The way it was developed, right? This OODA loop is a rapid decision-making model. Again, it was developed by a U.S. Air Force colonel. His name was John Boyd. It was developed to help individuals and organizations make faster, more effective choices in a dynamic, changing, uncertain environment, right? And what it allows people to do is to cycle through and understand how people cycle through these 4 stages. Okay. And again, these 4 stages are observe, right? Orient, which has to do with making decisions. Okay. And then decide, right? And then act. Okay. So while this was developed as a framework for people to use, the reality is that everybody does this. Now, how well they do each of these things kind of comes into question, right? So when people are studying this, observe means, like, do you know what you're looking for and looking at? What does that tell you about things, right? The orient level, it's not the orient like Japan and China and stuff, right? This is choosing, this is making sense of it, okay? What does that tell you, okay? That somebody's stance, their positions with their hands, because this guy punches differently than this guy, right? Different than this guy, right? Even if they're very close and the hands are in the same place, the orientation of the elbows, the orientation of the shoulders speaks volumes about fight style, power, and what they put into things, right? As opposed to like this guy, right? Here, okay? He's going to be sensing things and then coming in with things. He's more of a speed fighter, but he's also more where he's going to be testing the waters to see what you do, okay? This guy is more, he's got a direct path, and when he decides to go, he's going, okay? That kind of thing. These are all different, right? We're studying, okay? But what I want you to see is that Hira doesn't stop an attack. We try to stop it up here, okay? But once we realize that it can't be stopped, then we don't try to stop it, okay? So Hira doesn't stop the attack. It disrupts orientation. He's observing. But remember, he already came with a whole bunch of baggage. He came with preferences, right? He came with tricks that he likes to do, those kind of things, right? Came with an agenda, right? He also came with a line that he's willing to go to but not cross. Okay? What we're doing with Hira is inserting ourselves into this OODA loop, this mental state, and disrupting orientation. Okay? If we disrupt orientation, right, him making sense out of things, then his decision making will be off. It's disrupted, and then his actions will be off. Okay, so it doesn't mean that he still won't do things, but we're skewing things because we're disrupting. Right? He can't make proper sense out of what he sees. That, my friends, is much higher level warrior capability than any technique you could learn, because this makes the technique that you choose, your choice, and your action much more effective. Okay, and this is what allows, because Ninjutsu was developed for the underdog to win. Well, how does the underdog win when the other guy has, just like that World War II engineer group, 30 guys, give or take, right? Whole freaking Panzer division, right? They had landmines they couldn't plant, all that, right? What we do is we flip the script, okay? Because 45s and M1, rifles and whatnot, not going to take on a tank, let alone a shit ton of tanks and a whole bunch of guys with, submachine guns and stuff like that, right? But if I can scare the shit out of them, if I can make them second guess everything that they see, if I can make them second guess every thing they think they see, it changes. Okay, but everybody can do what they do, right? They want to just continue to do it like everybody else is doing. We're just going to duck punches and hope for the best. And I hope my head can take more than his head can, so I get the knockout or I get the win or whatever. You have to hope that the other guy's not faster, not stronger, not better, not whatever. Okay. And I get it. Attitude will take you a long way, but this is not the same. Okay. So anyway, before we wrap up, I want to say something important. Okay. Not that I haven't been saying something important, but this is especially for those who found themselves, right? If you found yourself nodding along with this lesson, right? It's making sense to you, right? If what I covered resonated with you, not because it was flashy, not because it's complicated, not because it made sense, but because it made sense. Let's change that, right? Not just because it made sense, Sensei's teaching, right? But because, right? You see the value in it. You see the logic, right? It's coming from a place of strategic thinking. Then you're probably not looking to just collect techniques, right? And random lessons anymore, okay? Jumping around on YouTube is just, it's not cutting it anymore because I need to understand strategically and tactically, right, how to make things work, right? What we explored in this lesson is the difference between learning moves, learning another kata, which lineage it came from, and what's its Japanese name, and what does it mean in English, or whatever your native tongue is, right? It's a difference between that and learning how to think, position, and protect yourself strategically, okay? This is exactly the foundation that I built into my Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense program, right? This is our module 1. Whether somebody comes into the dojo and trains here or they do it online, it's module 1 in my Ninpo Mastery and my Ninpo Elite group coaching programs, right? This isn't about memorizing techniques in isolation. Do you learn them? Of course, right? But it's not about memorizing things in isolation. It's about developing real situational awareness, coherent body language, right? Intelligent positioning, and the ability to manage distance, intent, and escalation, right? Before things turn chaotic. And as my grandfather used to say, you're fighting an uphill battle because it's assholes and tin cups and you're trying to reorient yourself, right? In other words, we don't start with fighting. We start with not needing to fight, right? And still being fully prepared if we have to, right? It's not an either or. Two things can be true at the exact same time, okay? So again, if you like the way Hira was broken down, layered, strategic, progressive, that's how the entire program is taught, okay? Not random order, no technique dumping, no ego driven, look what I know kind of presentation or material, right? Just a clear path that helps you build real world self-protection skills, okay, from the ground up, okay? So if you're ready for that kind of training, you can find the details. There's the link I put this time. Where's my hand? There we go. There's the link. You can go over there and take a look at things, right? Take a look when you're ready. If it looks or it feels like it's the right next step, then you'll know, okay? And if not, no harm, no foul, okay? But that being said, to close out, you can fake posture. You can fake movement. You cannot fake presence. The form, the body's form is the body's form, but it's not about the form. It's about the presence that inhabits that form, okay? So that's why Hira is powerful, right? And why it's dangerous if it's taught incorrectly, right? Because Hira doesn't just stop people. Hira stops positions. It controls the battlefield, whether that's the space between he and I, or the space between me and all these other jackwagons that want to come in here, or the space between him and what he wants to get at, right? And it destabilizes intent, right? He can be as intent-driven as he wants to be. But if I disrupt his ability to make sense out of what he sees or what he thinks he sees, if I control this, if I disrupt this, I screw up his decision-making process, and every action that comes from flawed decisions will be flawed from the get-go. Okay. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. I'm glad that you made it along for this this little ride here. Again, it's one of the last ones for 2025. But anyway, we'll do more. Okay. So if it helped, great. If not, well, there's always how many other tens of thousands of people teaching this stuff online. Okay. There's always that, right? But either way, right? If this was interesting, if you want more, you can either check out the Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense program, or you can see me next time, right? Right here on Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. I'll see you. Train hard.